Okay, I'm back. Did you miss me? I missed you. Ooh woo. Alright. So let me put this, and I'm gonna have this in the background. We're gonna start off our edgy thing with some free, scary background music instrumentals, which is literally, I swear, this is the exact same instrumentals I found for every single YouTube horror narration ever. I swear, I promise. So we're gonna do this. Ooh, yes, build up the ambiance. Ooh, very scary. And we're gonna start our narration, so get ready, get some popcorn, sit back, listen to me try to read. Oh, of course it goes on like the first clowny one. This is the story of Laughing Jack. It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. Alright, this music's not very good. This music's not good, it's not building it up. Bad music, never mind, sorry. There we go, that's the one. It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. He never had many friends, but he has always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido when I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was he could be talking to. Could he have finally made a friend? Being a single mom, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. Advertisements. When I went into the backyard, I was a bit confused because James was the only person back there. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. James, it's time to come inside, I called out to him. He came inside and sat down at the kitchen table. I was about lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. James, who are you talking to out there? I asked. James looked up at a moment. I was playing with my new friend, he said, smiling. I poured him some milk and continued to pry, as any good mother would. Oh, does your friend have a name? Why didn't you ask him to have lunch with us? I asked. James stared at me for a moment before replying. His name is Laughing Jack. I was a bit taken back by what he said. Oh? That's a strange name. What does your friend look like? I asked, a bit confused. He's a clown. He has long hair and a big swirly cone nose. He's got long arms and a baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles. I realized my son was talking about an imaginary friend. I suppose it is normal for kids his age to have many imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phase. The rest of the day went by as per usual, and it was starting to get late, so I put James to bed. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and made sure to turn his nightlight on before I closed the door. It was pretty tired myself before I decided to go to bed not long after. And then, I had an awful nightmare. It was dark. I was in some kind of run-down amusement park. My favorite kind. I was scared, running through the endless field of empty tents, broken down rides, and abandoned game huts. The whole place had a terrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses at the game huts, all with sick grins attached to their faces. It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there wasn't any other living thing in sight. Then suddenly, I began to hear music play. The sounds of Pop Goes the Weasel being played on a squeeze box echoed through the park, and it was hypnotizing. I followed the tune into the circus tent almost in a trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light came from a single spotlight shining in the center of the big top. As I walked towards the light of the music slowed down, I found myself singing along, unable to stop. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The monkey thought 'twas all good fun. The music stopped right before its climax, and suddenly the lights shot on. The intensity of the lights was practically blinding. All I could see was small dark silhouettes shuffle towards me. Then another one appeared, and another, and another. There was dozens of them, all coming towards me, and I couldn't move. My legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as they were haunting figures drew nearer. As they got closer, I could see they were children. As I looked to each one, I noticed that they were all horribly disfigured and mutilated. Some had cuts all over their body, others were severely burnt, and others were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground, and tearing inside me. As the children tore me apart, I faded away, and all I could hear was laughter. Horrible, awful laughter. Whoop. Boop. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James' action figures were positioned facing me on top of my nightstand. I sighed. James had probably woken up early and put these there. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James' room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and placed the toys back into his toy box and headed into the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I made him breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. James, honey, did you put those toys in Mommy's room this morning? His eyes shot up at me for a moment, then quickly glanced back down at his cereal. Laughing Jack did it. I rolled my eyes and responded, well, you tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in your room. James nodded and finished his breakfast, then decided to go play in the backyard. Goddamn. Goddamn, this music. So intense. I went to relax in the living room and I must have dozed off because I woke up a couple hours later. Shit! I need to go check on James. I was a bit worried. It'd been over 2 hours and I haven't checked on him. I stepped out into the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, so I called out to him. Mom sounding like a MILF, joking, awooga. I'm trying my best. Ara. I was getting nervous, so I called out to him. James? James, where are you? Just then, I heard a giggle come from the front yard. I rushed through the gate around the front of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a sigh of relief. Oh my god, I lost my place. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked over to him. James, how many times have I told you to stay in the back? James, what are you eating? James looked up at me, then reached in his pocket and pulled out a handful of hard candies in all colors. This made me really nervous. James, who gave you that candy? James just stared at me, not speaking. James, please tell Mommy where you got that candy. James hung his head down and said, Laughing Jack gave it to me. My heart sunk. I kneeled down and looked him in the eye. James, I've had enough of this damn Laughing Jack thing. He is not real. Now this is a very serious situation and I need to know who gave you that candy. I could see my son's eyes tear up. But Mama, Laughing Jack did give me the candy. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. James has never lied to me about, but what he's telling me is impossible. I make him spit out the candy and I throw the rest away. James appears to be fine. Maybe I'm just overacting. After all, he could have gotten it from Tom and Linda next door, or Mr. Walker down the street. Either way, I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on James. That night, I put James to bed as usual and decided to go to bed early myself. Suddenly, I was woken up by a loud bang coming from the kitchen. I sprung out of bed and hurried down the stairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified. Everything on the counters had been thrown on the floor, and our dog Fido hung dead from the light fixture. Of course he did. Of course he did. My candy! No candy for you. Da-da. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with candy. The same type that James was eating earlier that day. My shock was quickly broken by a sharp scream coming from James's room, followed by loud crashes. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved upstairs with the speed that only a mother whose child is in danger could have. I burst through the door and flicked on the lights. Everything in the room was knocked over and tossed on the floor. My poor son in his bed crying and shaking in fear, a pool of urine staining his sheets. I scooped my child up and ran out the house and went next door to Tom and Linda's. Luckily, they were still awake. They let me use their phone and I called the police. It didn't take them long to arrive, and I explained what had happened. They looked at me as if I was crazy, though. They searched the house, but all they found was a dead dog and 2 trash rooms. The officer told me that someone had probably gone into the house and done this right before making a quick escape when they learned that I was coming up the stairs. I knew it wasn't true, though. All the doors were locked, and none of the windows were open. Whatever was in my house didn't come from outside. Come in, do you want some black tea? I do. I very much want some black tea. Thank you, bestie. Also, welcome, Goose. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went to the garage and found his old baby monitor and set it up in his room if anything comes in tonight. Oh, they really need to learn how to actually, like, do periods. I'm trying my best. I'm actually editing while I narrate. Okay. I went into the garage and found his old baby monitor and set it up in his room if anything comes into it tonight. I was going to be able to hear it. Yeah, that's a bad sentence. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife from the drawer and put it on my nightstand. Imaginary friend or not, I'm not letting anything hurt my little boy. Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed, even though he was afraid, but I promised him that I wasn't going to let anything happen to him. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and turned on the nightlight. Before closing the door, I whispered to him, "Good night, James. I love you." I tried to stay up as long as I could, but after a few hours, I felt myself drifting off. My baby would be safe for the night, and I needed to sleep. Just as I lay my head on the pillow, I heard a soft noise coming from the baby monitor that I put on my nightstand. At first, it sounded like interference, like the kind of radio would make. Then it turned into a soft moan. Was James asleep? Then I heard it. The laugh from my nightmare. That horrible laugh. I sprung up from the bed and grabbed the knife from under my pillow. I rushed over to James' room and creaked the door open. I tried to light the switch, but it wouldn't come on. I took a step in and I could feel the warm, thick liquid on my feet. Suddenly, James' nightlight came on and I could see an absolute horror that laid out in front of me. James' body was nailed to the wall, the nails piercing through his hands and feet. His chest was cut wide open, and his organs hung down on the floor. His eyes and tongue had been removed, along with most of his teeth. I was disgusted. I could hardly believe this was my baby boy. Then I heard it again, that soft, desperate moan. James was still alive! My baby, my poor baby, in so much pain, barely clinging to life. I ran across the room and vomited on the floor, but my sickness was interrupted by a horrible cackle coming from behind me. I spun around while still wiping bile from my mouth. Then out of the shadows emerged the fiend responsible for all this horror. Laughing Jack. His ghost-white skin and matted black hair hung down to his shoulders. He had piercing white eyes surrounded by dark black rings. His twisted smile revealed a row of sharp, jagged teeth, and his skin didn't look like skin at all. It almost looked like rubber or plastic. He wore a patchy black and white clown outfit with striped sleeve socks. His body itself was grotesque, his long arms hanging down past his waist, and the way he was poised made him look like almost boneless, like a rag doll. Hey! Hey! Cool black tea is what I call Coke Zero's bottom up. Gross. Icky. Cheaty. My sleep demon twerking in the corner. Ambia, welcome to the stream. Hello, you caught me in the middle of a narration. We are reading Laughing Jack. Welcome, welcome. Alright, I am going. Are you a rag doll? Maybe. Perhaps. I wouldn't call myself rag. But I am made of cloth. Sort of. Kind of. Somewhat. What am I filled with? You're gonna have to take me to dinner first if you want to find that out. Laughing Jack is a classic. Alright. Let's get back to the story. Da-da-da. He wore a patchy black and white clown outfit with striped sleeves and socks. His body itself was grotesque. his long arms hanging down past his waist, and the way he was poised made him look almost boneless, like a rag doll. He let out a sickening laugh, as if to let me know he was pleased with my reaction to his work. He then turned around and slowly in front of James began to laugh even more at the horrific sight he had laid out. That was enough to shake me from my terror, and I snapped, "Get away from him, you bastard!" I rushed at the monster, raising the knife above my head and stabbed down at him. But as soon as the knife touched him, he disappeared into a cloud of black smoke. The knife passed right through and pierced James' still beating heart, slashing down the warm blood on my face. No. What have I done? My baby! Oh God, I killed my baby! I immediately fell to my knees, and I could hear sirens in the distance growing louder. My boy. My sweet baby boy. I promised Mommy would protect you. But I failed. I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. The police soon arrived to find me in front of my son, still wielding the knife covered in my baby's blood. The trial was short. Insanity. I was placed in the, I'm not saying that. Feropolis? Oh, I hate them for saying this word. House for the criminally insane, where I have been for the past 2 months. It's not so bad here. The only reason I'm awake now is because something keeps playing Pop Goes the Weasel outside my window. I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning. Dup, dup, dup. And credit for this story is... Snuff Bomb. Gross. Okay. But there we go. That's the story of Laughing Jack. Woo! Goose, okay, meet me behind the Olive Garden. Bet. Alright, I'm gonna get my endless breadsticks. Ooh, I'm so excited. Unlimited supply soup and salad with breadsticks. Envia, if you see leather as a cloth, nah. I'm not leather. We'll see if they got the endless pasta going too. Ooh, delicious. You're making me hungry, shut up. Alright. Now we can turn off the edgy music. Because it's decent. I'm enjoying it, but I'll put on something else for a little bit. But if leather is a cloth and people are just raw ragdolls, technically? I mean, ragdolls insinuate that that was taken from something else in order to create the thing, and not just, like, born with it. A ragdoll has to be sort of like a Frankenstein thing, but it's just never it was never intended to be made alive, unlike Frankenstein's creature. Alright. So we've gotten through the ooky spookiness of Laughing Jack. Ooh! Ooh! Oh, so scary. The clown came and murdered my baby. And for some reason, everyone just thought that, like, hey, nothing crazy build up. I don't know. It's kind of a simplistic story. I will say it's still better written than Jeff the Killer. I was gonna say Jack the Killer. Maybe she was born with it. Maybe she's a ragdoll. Maybe it's Maybelline. I will say though, I do think it's kind of silly that the instant thing with these creepypastas is that everyone needs to have the police not actually take it seriously. Like, hey, my dog was eviscerated and it, like, literally his carcass is in my kitchen and, like, my kid has been terrorized. He screamed and it's like, okay, that's kind of bananas, lady. Who does that? And it's like, you deal with this on the regular basis, officer. What the fuck do you mean? Why would you immediately just take that and be like, okay, let's stop taking some of those Nutter Butter pills, okay, lady? Like, what? They needed a little bit more build up into that before the police just automatically assumed that she was talking out of her ass. But that's besides the kind of outstretched, like the outstretched sentences that needed to just be like cut apart, and the spelling. Those are my only gripes really with the story. Other than that, it's a fairly decent one. I can see why it got to its point in popularity. Still shocked that Jeff the Killer got so popular, considering it's written like, I don't know, like a blind 12-year-old that literally fell down the stairs in his coma wrote it. It's so bad. Who knows? There's so much different versions of Jeff the Killer. We might read that on a future Creepypasta reading. Like the new backroom stuff. Oh, you mean it's like the new background stuff, how bad it is? Or like, do you like the new backroom stuff? Either way. Jeff the Killer is only sentimental to me because I was into it back when I was in middle and high school. Yeah, same. I think that's why so many people liked it now. But like, it was like same for me when I was in high school and stuff. But I just can't understand why we thought it was so good. I'm gonna blame, honestly, the narrators because they probably fixed it way more than we actually read. Like Mr. Creepypasta or whatever his name was. I remember hearing him read it first. And the way he read it was far better than the actual story itself. So I'm gonna blame him for the reason why we like still hold Jeff the Killer anywhere in mainstream media as like a popular point in time. It's wild. I do not like the new backroom stuff. It's too much at once. Yeah, I do feel like it started off with something good because it was purposely vague, but then because it went into such a wild direction and they kept trying to do it like with kids. Kids got a hold of it, and as kids do, it can't just be left purposely vague. They had to add like Sonic EXE and Ghosts and this other popular one and Naruto, and then it got convoluted. But I do think it started off like as a good simplistic story that was purposely vague, and then people just took the piss, as kids do. And yeah, Jeff the Killer was only sentimental to me because I was into it in middle and high school, but I'm sentimental about plenty of mid-media. I agree it's the voice actors and edited sound effects that made it so good. Absolutely. I blame them for us, even for a nanosecond, thinking that Jeff the Killer was good or cool, because Jeff the Killer is a fucking dork, and if I saw him in a back alley, I would beat him up and throw him in the trash. I'd be like, shut the fuck up. Go to sleep, and be like, fucking bitch. Tell me when my bedtime is. I'll slap you silly. I'm old enough to be your mom. Go to bed yourself. Tell me what to do. Psh. You wildin', child. You wildin'. Alright. Please stab me. I have insomnia. No. No. It's not allowed. I'm sorry. You just... Unless you want a little injection of some of the sleepy time juice. Tell you what. We'll get Laughing Jack. We'll bring Buddy Boy over here to take care of you. We'll just like... We'll put him in our dreams and then he'll do the Mega Lol. Laughing Jack is essentially just a huge troll. He's just an internet troll in this story where he just like goes around and is like, oh my god, a mega lol, I cut up your dog, I cut up your child, oh lol 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 lol. It's like, okay. Okay. Sorry, or good joke, I guess. I'm not sure. Weird. Weirdo. Weirdo. But yes. Some of these are just like purposely so vague. I remember one creepypasta that like I was listening to someone narrate it, and it was so ridiculous, the like descriptors that they were using to purposely make sure that the story sounded edgy, that it just literally, it cut me out. Mock him for his sense of humor. Be like, oh, I got a pointy nose. Everything smells so much more powerful than this. I had to cut the dog because my nose is more superior than the dog. Oh, beans on toast. Oh, ho, ho. I'm just a clown. I look like a candy-wrapped bitch. Then he just murders us. It's like, oh, hello, I'm your new son, mommy. I would like some beans on toast. Sorry, I'm not trying to do ASMR with eating my English muffin. No ASMR. Delicious though. Okay. So we need this descriptor right here. It was dark. Rundown amusement park, which I do love. British muffin. It's an English muffin. So yeah. Same difference, right? It's a British muffin. Just like this candy wrapped bitch. You come over here, Laughing Jack stabs my cat. I come over there and I call him an absolute fucking dweeb. Laughing at me, it's like, is that all you can do, funny lad? All you can do, you fucking Slim Jim wrapped in a fucking black and white movie screen? You big candy ass bitch. You fucking Ronald McDonald from the 30s cartoon looking ass. You fucking vintage Ronald McDonald looking bitch. You fucking Betty Boop wannabe. You fucking cartoon reject. You I would just, I would unleash on the Jack, on the laughing man. And then throw his own candy back at him. Also, oh, I just realized something though. This story said, blah 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 blah. She ran to him. She ran to her baby nailed on the wall. And then look behind her. She looked behind her. And like from behind her, she went to attack Laughing Jack. And yet somehow she still managed to stab her baby in the wall that was behind her? God damn. God damn, it do be like that sometimes, you know? Sometimes you just gotta stab your kid. Sometimes it be like that.